I'm no longer bound, I'm no longer chained, I'm no longer captive, no longer restrained, delivered, set free, and free to be me. Let me introduce myself.
Welcome to Be the Light with Pastor Zakiya Robinson. In this show, I interviewed Richard and Elizabeth Albertson. They talk about their marriage journey and how God saved their marriage. They also talk about their ministry called Live the Life. So if you have a struggling marriage, or maybe you just want to enhance your marriage, tune in because this is a show you don't want to miss.
My name is Freedom.
Welcome everybody to Be the Light. I'm super excited about today. I have no idea. I have Richard and Elizabeth Albertson. Woo, woo, woo. I used to work for Live the Life, and these are the founders, the boss. Okay,
we miss you. We miss you, Zakiya. It's not the same there without your smiling face.
Hey, I'm telling you, I'm always available. But I met these two because I came on board with Live the Life, and I kind of started as just an assistant, just helping Doug out. And I gradually moved up to being able to be coordinator for the student program. And so what I love about these two is that they are very open about marriage. Okay. Starting marriage. I mean, they had talked about their own struggles. They have this thing, awesome program called Adventures in Marriage, where they help struggling marriages, not just struggling marriages, but marriages that is in the military, which is a need. And so before we get there, I want y'all to kind of just talk about what was your journey. A lot of people that listen to the show know we talk about journeys and how people came to Christ, but we want to talk about your marriage journey because there's a reason why you have lived the life. And so whoever wants to start is fine. What was the journey in your marriage? What did it start? How was it? And where are you headed?
Well, I believe that God invites us to become who we were meant to be. And so that's been part of the journey for me. And it started, something we're celebrating 35 years of marriage this year. But about 30 years ago, it wasn't so good. Things were not good. And the first marriage class Elizabeth and I ever went to, was at our church. It was Gary Smalley's Love is a Decision, which some people might have heard of. And it's been around forever. And one of the questions they would ask you is, how would you rate your marriage on a scale of 1 to 10? And so I gave it a 9.5 because, I won all the arguments. And so I thought we had a great marriage. And Elizabeth gave it a 2. And I was like, honey, 10 is the high score. 1 is the low score. And she's like, I know. And we're teaching the class. We're the leaders of this class at the church. And
put the video in.
Yeah. But I was not happy about this. So, I get home that night and I got out a legal pad and I started to write down all kinds of suggestions and ideas for how Elizabeth could improve her scores, that she could get her scores up. I had all kinds of suggestions on how she could become a better wife.
So you thought it was Elizabeth's.
Oh, of course. It wasn't me. She's the one that gave it a 2. I gave it a 9.5. She just needs to get with the program and we can have a great marriage. So I do what so many of us do when we're in our marriage. We love to point the finger at the other person and what they're doing wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody ever wants to look in the mirror, when we're dealing with issues in the marriage or issues in relationships. So that strategy totally backfired. It got to the point where she said if things didn't change, she wanted a divorce. I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't have biblical grounds for divorce. There's no, I use the Bible.
Right.
I tried to use the Bible. That didn't work. That strategy didn't work. And I thought, my life kind of flashed before my eyes and I realized I was going to become a different person. My whole life would turn out differently. We had 2 little kids at the time, Ashley and Rachel. Their lives are going to be completely changed and, abruptly disrupted. Her life is going to be different. Everything that I had planned, why are you messing up all these plans that I had, right? It's all her fault. So none of that worked, but it was kind of like one of those defining moments. We all have those defining moments in our lives and those things happen to us. And that's where I got on my knees and I started to pray. I'm like, Lord, is this what you had for me? Was this the plan you had for me? I'm like, this does not seem like the trajectory that I was on. This is and I realized I learned I had to slow down and I'm going to lose everything that matters to me if I don't figure this out. Everything I care about, I'm going to lose it. And I don't want that.
Right.
And I'm like, and I don't understand why she doesn't think I'm a great husband because I'm a great husband, and if I'm not a great husband, okay, what do I need to do to become that? Because I didn't know how. And most people don't know how. The more we do this, and you've seen it with your own eyes, people just don't know how because they were never raised with this. No one ever told them. They didn't have a good example of this growing up. So how in the world can you expect them when they never learned it?
And I was going to ask that because I know a little bit about the background with your parents and stuff. Do you think that played a huge role in how you started your family? Just seeing how your mom and dad was, and then you kind of like transitioned to your own family and using those same.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I saw what I grew up. My mom and dad did not have the best marriage. I mean, I love my mom and dad. They were married for 60 years.
Wow.
So, but they didn't have a great marriage.
Right.
And they didn't do it well. And I saw my dad. So all I knew was what not to do. I'm not going to do what my dad did, yelling and screaming at my mom and, just belittling her. And it was just, that I know not to do that.
Right.
But I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
I did have a good role model in my mom of how to be a good parent. So I'm like, okay, I do have kind of a roadmap there, how to be a good parent. Well, so being a good parent, she's over there going, well, okay, I'm glad the kids are getting some attention. I'm glad the kids are getting all this love and attention.
Yeah.
Well, because I saw that growing up, I did know how to do that. I just didn't know how to do the husband part because I never saw that. So we had to become students. We had to both learn and we had to read books. I read lots of books. I listened to lots of tapes and videos, and I just did everything like a sponge, try to find out as much as I could about how to do this the right way. There's got to be a better way,
right.
So that was kind of a defining moment for her, but she can tell you her perspective.
I was just about to ask that. So you doing these scores, you put it at a 2. What was going through your mind once you noticed he was making a checklist for you? Like, what were you thinking? Like,
I was thinking there's no way to win. I was thinking I'm never going to be good enough. And I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. And I'm not saying he was terrible, but he was an alcoholic father. So you walked on eggshells and you're always kind of worried, am I enough? And I didn't want to live that way the rest of my life. I just didn't want to have that pressure. It wasn't worth it to me. So I didn't want to get a divorce either, but I just wasn't going to live the way we were. So it's interesting that you talk about on your show, you're very often talking about your journey to faith.
Yes.
That was a huge part of my journey to faith because at the time, I was certainly not where I should be in my faith. And I got to the end of myself and said, you know what, Lord, you've got to meet me every step of the way. And I'm so thankful that he really did. So, because I really didn't feel like I had an option to leave because I didn't want my mom raising my kids. Not that she's not a great parent, but I wanted to raise my kids. So I'm so thankful that I said, okay, Lord, I don't have anybody to turn to but you. And he really, really did meet both of us.
So do you feel like, even though y'all had like these issues, I don't want to say small issues because they was, I wasn't in it, but even though you had these issues, you felt like it brought you closer to God?
100%.
Okay,
oh, yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And then also, I wanted to ask you, Richard, was one of the things that you were talking about was you started to take in a lot of like information. Is that how you started to, like, God started to speak to you like, hey, you're getting ready to be like, I don't even call it business, but it's about to be a ministry. We're getting ready to turn this into a ministry. When did you realize that, okay, this is an issue across the board? Like, It's not just me. This is all over. Like, how do we fix this? What was that like for you? Like, when did God start speaking to your heart about making it a ministry?
Well, the first priority was to minister to my own family. That was like
say that one more time.
To minister to my own family.
Yes,
because that was the starting point. I have to get me right. Right. I got to work on me. I got to stop pointing the finger at her. What do I need to learn from this, Lord? What is it you want to teach me? And so I would ask him, okay, Lord, what do you want to teach me? I obviously have a lot to learn about what it is to be a good husband, a good father, all of these things, a better man. So I just went on that hunt, and I was like a sponge. Look, I'm open. I am receptive to whatever you want to teach me. I want to learn.
Yeah.
And so I did that first. And then as that happened, we dodged that bullet and we ended up, we went into a better place. And so there was a moment where at that church that we were working at, I was being fired by the pastor. And here I am in my mind, again, thinking I'm doing a great job, and my world was turned upside down. The pastor was very egocentric and he was very competitive, and I substitute preached for him one day, and all these people called in and said, can we have more of that young guy in the pulpit? And I thought, well, that's good. I must have done a good job. But no, that was not good, because everyone wants the young guy to start preaching. And so I thought that was a feather in the cap. Like, well, I did well. I made the church. I'm advancing the kingdom of Christ, right? So the pastor's goal from that day forward was to get rid of me.
Wow.
Because I was competitive. And I wasn't competing, but in his mind, it was insecure. Exactly. So I was a threat. So he got rid of me. And so in that process, I'm like, oh, great. So I'm struggling in my marriage. Obviously, I had that all backwards. And here I am. One thing I'm really good at is I'm a hard worker and I make things happen and I get things done. So I'm an asset here. No, you're wrong about that too. You're about to get fired. So my world was like totally unraveling. And I'm like, Lord, what am I supposed to do in the midst of all this? This is extremely difficult. And so I had a guy named Bill Matthews, who was kind of a mentor to me at the church at the time. He said, Richard, you need to go home and tell Elizabeth that you're going to lose your job. I'm like, are you out of your mind? We're in the middle of a struggle. She's already saying she wants a divorce. Now she finds out I'm going to lose my job. I'm just this, unemployed loser. You can't keep a wife. You can't keep a job. You're out of your mind. He says, son, he's older, wiser. You need to go home and tell your wife everything. I'm like, that is the worst advice I've ever. I'm sitting there and I'm driving home and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Lord, do you want me to do this? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Lord is. So I wrestled the entire drive home and I'm like, well, what else do I have to lose?
Right.
I'm going to lose everything. So I said, okay. So I went and I sat down with Elizabeth and I told her, well, on top of everything else we're dealing with, new information, I'm going to lose my job. And she was like, that's all?
Wow.
You're just going to lose your job, honey? We can work through that. Someone's going to hire you in a heartbeat. We're not going to have trouble finding a job. I thought it was something else. I thought there was more stress between us. And I'm like, really? Yeah, we can fight with it. She says, I was wondering why your fuse was this long and why, Rachel spills some spaghetti on the floor and you're all upset. You never used to get upset about that kind of. Now you're like,
right.
And I thought there was something even more that I didn't even know about. It's just you losing your job. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just fight that together. And I'm like, that's your reaction to me telling you? Oh. So it was the wise thing to do, but it's counterintuitive. Most people, they want to, especially when things are going bad, they want to withdraw and pull back and cover up and hide and not do. Whereas opening up and confiding and being honest and being real, that's actually the antidote a lot of times. So I did that. And that really was when things started to turn because now we're fighting together this issue and moving forward. And that was really kind of a big turning point.
Do you think, a lot of people probably don't know what the DTR is, but it's called daily temperature reading. Do you think that is what helped you with the daily temperature reading to just be able to unload everything? So, cause like you were just like, okay, you thinking it's something bigger. And it's just, okay, I'm not going to say just a job loss, but it was a job loss. But you're thinking like, this has something to do with me. What did I do wrong? Because a lot of times, like, for instance, you use the example of like the door slams. And then all day your spouse is walking around the house or thinking like, oh, my God, the door slammed. What are they mad at me about?
They're sure they know. It's because of this, that, or the other. They're sure.
Right. But then they just come to find out it was just the wind that caught the door.
And it's change our lives because we thought he's mad.
Correct. And they're like, I wasn't mad at you. That was just the wind. Did you realize the window was open? As soon as I shut the door, the whole door slammed. And so, explain, because I know this is something that you do, I say we're, because sometimes I'm at the Adventures in Marriage. You explain the DTR. And we don't want to give y'all everything because if you want to go through this, you have to be there. And so, but there's a few things. Just name a couple of your favorites out of the DTR that y'all do.
Okay.
Just a couple.
Well,
because we want people to pay for this.
Well, I think one thing I would say relates to both what he was talking about and the DTR is humility. And he was willing to humble himself and include me and allow us to kind of look at things together. And so he thought I'd be upset with him when in reality, when he shared his life with me, that just made me all the more bonded to him and willing to face anything together and really just have God on our side because that was huge. But as far as the DTR, that is one of my favorite things we teach. And I would say if you are willing to do something new that you aren't used to doing, and it takes humility to take out that silly card and spend time deliberately together, connecting on a much deeper level, and creating, that's like a secret to how you can, most people don't have a safe place.
Right.
Most people on this earth don't have a safe place with anybody, much less their spouse.
Right.
But that's really a secret ingredient to creating a safe place in your marriage. So it's come to our class because you could find one of the secrets of the universe. You never know.
Yeah, and I definitely say Eric and I still use those. There would be times I'm like, okay, I have a complaint request for change. Or I just name one, after us doing it so much, it's just like now we kind of automatically is already in the routine of doing it throughout
normalized.
the day.
We just do it all. We do a daily temperature all day long.
Without even realizing
all the time. It just becomes part of the way you talk to each other.
Yep. And I was just teaching over at one of the schools out in Gaston County. And one of the things I was telling them is that, communication, is number one. That's really the key to a lot of this.
Yep.
And I was telling them that a lot of people, they have an issue with communication because of the way either they were brought up or maybe it's just not something that they have seen. So it's uncomfortable when you get into situations. And so I was saying, you have to be able to verbalize how you feel. Okay, even you introverted people, you have to verbalize how you feel.
Especially introverted people,
yes, because they hold it in.
They hold it in.
They hold it in.
It makes you vulnerable.
Yes.
It does make you vulnerable.
It does. And so y'all on this journey, repairing the marriage, okay, now, ding, the light comes on. This needs to be a class.
Right.
Okay. Were you right on board with it or did you kind of have like some second dials? Like what were your thoughts on it?
Well, because we got to the point where we were both looking to Christ, as we were going through this journey, lots of things happened, but I really did feel here we had a brand new 6-month-old. And I was like, I think we need to start Live the Life, which I don't even know if we had a name for it at that point now. And Rich was like, oh, we've just got this one more thing at work. I've got this one more thing, and if it wasn't for this one thing, I said, well, Lord, I think the Lord's making it pretty clear we need to start this. And his one thing got blown out of the water. So we really didn't have any other roadblocks. But actually, for once in our life, I was the one that was more willing to go out and jump off a crazy cliff with 4 children, one of whom was only 6 months old at the time.
And that's hard to just say, this is going to be my job. I'm going to take this head on. Like, how was that as the lead of the family, the husband? Like, okay, I'm about to start this.
Right. With no savings, no rich uncle that's going to bail you out, no deep pockets anywhere. It's really, you're totally relying on the Lord. And so that's a place. And normally I'm the one that's willing to jump off that cliff and be the one to say, okay, Lord, I trust you. Okay, let's do it. But we did realize through that process, most people just don't know how to be married. They don't have the first idea. And so, you know what? We could probably save some marriages if we just show them there's a better way to do this. There's a much better way to do this. You don't have to go through this agony. Most divorces can be avoided. Now, you can't save all of them. Look, we're in a fallen, broken world, right? But so many of them don't have to happen if they would just learn how to do it the right way.
Right.
So we just kept looking at each other like, well, this is something that we should share with the world, right? We should share with others. And at the time, it was just in Tallahassee. We're thinking, oh, well, we'll do it in Tallahassee, right?
Right.
And little signs along the way, like we're volunteers with our youth at the church, and they bring in a guest speaker, and he's talking about, the story of Peter out in the water in the storm, and then Jesus comes out in the stormy weather and come out here, and then he says, the safest place on that lake was not on the boat, where it was safe and dry and secure. The safest place in that storm was out in the water with Jesus.
Yeah.
That was the safest place. And I'm like, because this is when we're deliberating whether we should do this. The safest place is not in my safe, secure job where I have a 401k and I have health insurance and I have dental plan and I have all this wonderful benefits and I'm making good money. That's not where the safe place is. The safe place is out in the storm with Jesus. And I'm like, can't really argue with that because that's in the Bible. That really is the safest place. But we have 4 mouths to feed and we have, so you think those things. And normally I'm the one that jumps in. She's like, hey, we have 4 mouths to feed. But in this case, she was the one that was like, honey, it's so obvious. The Lord keeps giving us sign after sign after sign. And we could write a whole book about the signs that we got along the way. But when she did that, I said, well, if it wasn't for this one thing, and then the Lord a week later removed that one thing, I'm like, well, obviously you want us to do this. I mean, you couldn't make it any clearer. So we I gave 2 weeks notice when that happened. And that's when we started to live a life.
And that's
25 years ago.
Wow.
25 years.
Saving
Can you
marriages.
believe that? Oh my gosh. That's so cool. God is so good. It's been quite a roller coaster ride.
I definitely can relate when God is asking you to leave a job, a secure place, because that's what happened
where
here.
You love the people you work with.
Yes.
And they love you, Zekia. And they think the world of you and your family, you know.
It was hard. It was so hard because like God was already like talking to me. And he just kept saying, like, even before I actually took and went out, I just kept hearing, like, one day I was just at the office working, for you guys. And I just heard, I was like, okay, God, just give me the name. And one day I'm randomly writing, I just heard, be the light. I was like, be the light. And I was like, oh my God, you gave me the name. Like, be the light. And then he was like, then he started telling me, you're going to contact Doug. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to get on the radio. I had these plans for a whole year. I would not move on it because I was terrified because this is like,
I know that feeling.
You're asking me to leave a place that's helping paying rent. We have kids, we have bills.
And it's helping, it's advancing the kingdom of Christ. Yeah. So it's,
I was I was confused.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that some of you, God may have been asking you to stop a certain place and you're quite not understanding why, but it's to further what he has in you. Sometimes God sends us to a certain situation or just a certain area for a particular time. Who knows? Maybe it's to learn a skill set. Maybe it's to build your encouragement. I don't know. Maybe it's so you can see how a business really operate.
Yep.
Who knows what it was for? But even now, like I'm still serving for the students. I'm still involved. But I'm going to be honest, like anytime God asks you to do something, it's truly on faith, especially when he's telling you to leave a job that is like taking care of things. And what God reminded me in that was that, do you not know I signed those checks behind the scene? It's like, that's right. I guess you're right. You do.
That's right. That's exactly
and so, I wanted to talk about the military, okay, because you serve the military. Who knows who may hear this? Maybe it could be a military base, somebody that runs across it. But how do people get in contact with you when it comes to like, not just military, but maybe they want you to come to the church and do a program. How do people get in contact with you? What does that look like right now?
Well, they just go to livethelife.org, go to the website and plug in there or just call us, 850-668-3700. And we'll talk to them. What's cool about now is, when we first started, we had to go out and knock on doors and we had to go, cold calls and go meet with churches, total strangers. Who are you? Live Life? Who's that? They've never heard of us. Who are you? They don't know anything about you. And so, well, I don't know, and so there was like, we always had the saying, go with the goers. You go with the goers. Yeah. Some people are going to go with you, Zekia, and some people aren't.
You're right.
The ones that won't go, you pick up your feet, you dust off your sandals, and you go on to the next one, right? You just you go with the goers. So that was our philosophy. We're not going to worry about, if we only had this church, or if we only had this, Christian philanthropist in town that would underwrite this, or if we only had this or that. You don't worry about that. You're faithful to what you do. God provides. You go with the goers because that's the ones that are listening to him and that are there to do that with you. So what's cool about now, 25 years later, is we almost never, very rarely do we go out and say, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And we've got this program. They come to us and they'll pick up the phone, they'll call us, they'll email us and say, we heard about this. We saw some data. We saw some research. We just had a guy come to our Hope Weekend who's from the Pentagon. He's in the Pentagon in DC. He had seen some of the research that had come in from the Air Force bases. He saw the 3,000 people that have gone through this program. And he's like, look at this data. And this is not just one thing. This is over 7 years.
Wow.
He's like, well, I want to check this out. So he ends up coming to our Hope Weekend and it saved his marriage.
Wow.
He's like, this is for real. This is for real. We didn't have to do anything. He found us. So that's why the Lord now at this stage is kind of cool because it's now it's like, how do we replicate ourselves? Because there's not enough of us to go around.
Right.
We need more staff. We need more people doing this and more people out. So we're training people. We're training people to go. We just had this last weekend. We're calling it You Shirt Somebody. We give them the shirt with the logo, with our Live a Life logo. He got shirted this weekend. So he went through the whole process. Now he is ready to go. So Elizabeth and I don't have to go to that next one.
Right.
And so now
busy almost
we can't do it. There's just not enough. And we don't want to give up our marriage and our family by being on the road all the time. Right. So having those other people trained and now they go out.
Right.
And they love it and they're good at it and they represent us well. So it's kind of cool. It's just a different place, on this other side of it. It's kind of fun.
Right. So let's talk about what else is out there. You just talked about Hope Weekend. So most people may not know what Hope Weekend is. And so explain to us, what is Hope Weekend?
You want to do that one?
Sure. Hope Weekend it's a weekend that most people that come to it have just given up. They're kind of, it's just our last ditch effort. And so when they come, they've very often filed for divorce, but over 85% of the people that go through Hope Weekend tear up their divorce papers by the end of the weekend. So it is an extremely intense weekend, but it gives hope. Doesn't mean it's the end of the process, but it's a huge step forward in the process. And just this past weekend, we had a couple that came through the Hope Weekend, and we took them out to dinner. We didn't lead the Hope Weekend, but they had stayed at our house because they're from the military, and we just happened to work that out with them. But anyway, so we went out to dinner with them, and she looked at us and she said, we're just kind of talking, it kind of gets silent for a second. She looks and she says, you guys have changed our lives. Wow. You've changed our children's lives. You've changed generations, because this has changed our whole marriage and our whole life. And we thought, well, that's kind of what we do. It's been so crazy.
She's got tears in her eyes. Can we just pause for a minute? Can we just pause for a minute? I need y'all to hear this. And it was just like, wow, that was so encouraging.
Really that makes you keep going even on the days where you don't want to.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Lord has been so kind, because you don't always know the fruit. You don't always see, and you're not. The Lord doesn't promise that He's going to show you the fruit all the time, right? So, but that's kind of cool that we do get to see that, have those front row seats, and it is incredibly encouraging. It makes you want to go out and do it again, and again, because you are making a difference, and you making a difference in Gadsden County. I don't know if you've seen the charts, but we just got some charts from the Florida Department of Health, and we've been tracking the teen pregnancy rates across the state of Florida and the bacterial STDs, which is just a fancy way of saying chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, right? And so Gadsden County has been the worst county, as you know, for the past 50 years. Yeah. Really high. So all across the country, all across Florida, the teen pregnancy rate has been dropping, just kind of gradually dropping. But in Gadsden County, it's been going up, 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 up. And then all of a sudden, 3 years ago, it started going down, 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 down. Zakia, what's the only difference? What has changed in the last 10 years in Gadsden County? What's changed in the last 50 years? So it's going up, 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 up. What has changed? What's the only difference between now and 10 years ago?
What I would say is that because we're in the schools,
yes,
we're teaching them how to have healthy relationships. Just for instance, a young lady, we were talking about some different things. We were talking about relationship red flags, and we were talking about toxic relationships, and then the thought of people being molested and raped and stuff like that came up. And we were talking about that. And do you not know, at the end of the class, this one individual student came up to me. She waited till everybody left, and she came up to me. She was like, well, does this mean a person been raped if they hold you down, you're saying no, and you just give up and you just let them do it just because of the simple fact that they're too strong? I looked at her in her face and I said, I want to let you know, if that happened to you, then yes, that is what that is. And so the thing is, if I wasn't there, and if that other individual student didn't start talking about that, then she would have never been able to get the answer that she needed, because she was looking at, because I gave in, it's okay. And I said, no, it's not okay. Because at first you were struggling.
It's no big deal.
Right.
No, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That never should have happened.
No one talks about it. No one's talking about it. And so, and I could tell like she's got a good head on her shoulder. She's always answering and answering questions and putting her, interjecting. And so for me to see that from her, I'm going to be honest, I least expected that, because she had a lot of information. She knows a lot. So I was like, somebody's teaching her. But, and that's why I do what I do. So we have the student program. We have Hope Weekend. Okay, so let's talk about.
I got to give you one more though, because it wasn't just the teen pregnancy rates; it was also the bacterial STDs. Both of those things, slow, gradual drop for teenagers across Florida, just slowly dropping, natural. Not in Gadsden County, but in the last 3 years, the STDs dropped 3 years in a row. Wow! Boom, boom, boom. And the only difference is that we're in all those schools, whereas 3 years ago, nobody was doing this in any of those schools. Yeah. Nobody was helping those kids. And now I hope that I should email you those, because that'll encourage you. Like, wow, we really are making a difference with these kids in one of the worst counties in Florida, one of the poorest counties in Florida with the highest teen pregnancy rates. we're making a difference. That's a wonderful feeling.
It really is, because just teaching, I ain't gonna lie, I pray before I go in. I'm like, God, go before me, make the crooked way straight, because yesterday I literally had to stop in the midst of my second period, and I was just like, I'm done. I have to sit here. We'll pick up tomorrow. We'll pick up where we left off. I think I had like 15 minutes left, but they were rude. They were cussing. They were doing everything in the Bible that you should not be doing. That says not to do. They were doing. And I just sat there. I was just like, I really believe that it got a lot to do with them not being heard. So they come to school, they act out so that they can get attention. And then it was just crazy. But today I came, and I'm not gonna lie, I prayed before I went in. I asked God to make the crooked way straight. I asked God that those that's dealing with issues, if you can at least, I was really praying for these students. So I'm not just in there just to teach. I'm looking at certain ones and saying, I know that there's something going on with that one. I'm going home and I'm praying for them, which is what y'all do. When people go to Hope Weekend, people come to Adventures in Marriage, y'all sending out prayer requests like, hey, there's a struggling couple. We need y'all to pray for them. And so to me, it's more than just teaching. It's ministry for me. Obviously, I can't go in there and talk about God, but I can go home and I can pray for them. And I'm telling you, today, all of them was really listening today. And I was like, okay, who knew on day 6, almost more than halfway done, they're ready to listen. But then, at the end, you got kids coming up like, oh, thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Even though they seemed like they wasn't listening. They were listening.
They were listening a lot more than you realized they were.
Even some was taking notes. And so, I want to talk about the other 2 programs you have. You have a Start Smart. Okay. You want to talk about the Start Smart, or Miss Elizabeth, you want to talk about it? Whoever.
Well, it's one of my favorite programs too, because if you want to have fun, do Start Smart, because that's when the couples are just thinking nothing's ever going to happen to me and all that kind of stuff. But you go through and they're willing to listen, they're willing to try everything. But what's really, really valuable about Start Smart is when you go through it with a couple. And you get to know that couple. When you actually do hit that bump in the road, which everybody's going to hit, for the almost 25 years that we've been doing Start Smart, the couples that have gone through with us and come back to us when both were willing to get help. And I'm not saying everybody that's gone through Start Smart is still married, but those who are willing to come back and get help are still married. So that's pretty cool, because it really is nice to have someone who's there not for the wife or the husband, but for the marriage. And so that's what I love about Start Smart.
So because you establish a relationship with them and they're in your home and they calm down and they realize, okay, there's a older couple, you're just trying to love on them and give them hope, and also give them a resource that's not mom and dad, that's neutral. Just cares about them and getting to know them just because of who they are, right? And so we asked them in the last session, we asked them to commit to us, to promise us. When you hit that bump in the road, before you call an attorney and file for divorce, before you move assets around and do stupid things, and before you do something crazy, will you promise just to come back and talk to us? Because, we're not your parents, because your parents are not neutral. Come back, we'll talk to us, and whatever it is, we'll help you walk through it. We'll walk through that with you together. And 100% of the couples that come back, they're still married.
That's good. That's great.
Not all of them remember to come back. That's the thing. They give you their word. They look you in the eye, they sign it and say, oh yeah, we'll come back. And that just breaks my heart, because we would have helped them. Whatever it was, we would have helped them get over that bump. So, but the ones that do come back, and about half of them come back, all of them are still married. That's kind of cool. That's how the Lord works, right?
And so some of you may be like, what really is Start Smart? Start Smart, looks like they explained, it's a program. Well, for me, I'm going to be honest. Even when I started to, I don't want to say teach Start Smart, but even when I started to see couples, me and my husband started to see the couples and coaching. Yes, that's the word, coach. Yes, when we started to mentor, I was like, man, I wish I had this, because I'm gonna tell you, it's better. It's better than premarital counseling. I've been through premarital counseling. The premarital counseling before you get married. I talk about all this. But Start Smart goes deeper than premarital counseling. It's going to teach you everything that you need to know before you get married. Questions that you would ask each other that you probably would never think about. And so anyone who's thinking about getting married, or maybe you're just proposed and you're trying to find that right program or that right counselor, you can find that right here with Live the Life. And it's in Tallahassee. And I was just about to say it's all over the state.
All over the world.
It's all over the world now. Yeah.
Let's talk about exactly where those places are at really quick.
You can do Start Smart anywhere because it's literally all over the place. And so it can be done online. It's an online assessment that shows you, compares your answers with and it could be for dating couples too. You don't have to be engaged. Maybe they're seriously dating, but you ask the questions and then the computer takes your answers and your fiance or your boyfriend, girlfriend answers, that puts them together. And wherever you and your the significant other disagree, it's going to come up as a topic of conversation. Doesn't mean we're going to use it as a hammer to beat you over the head, but hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this topic and ask solution-oriented questions. We don't ask why questions. Well, why do you think that? Why would you do it that way? Why did you answer it? Because then people get defensive, right? You ask how questions. Well, how are you going to address this after you get married? How are y'all going to work this out? What's your plan? What questions? How questions? Because what questions and how questions are future oriented. We're looking to the future. How are we going to address this? What is our plan to tackle that problem? Because that's kind of a sticking point for us. Rather than, well, why is that a sticking point? And what's wrong with it? You don't do that.
Right.
So you get to process a lot of that.
The crazy thing is a lot of issues start on something small.
Oh, absolutely.
Something very small.
The little things get bigger.
And then it explodes.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Exactly
so Adventures in Marriage, I think that's the last one that we talked about it, but what can people expect out of Adventures in Marriage?
Well, Adventures in Marriage is kind of like our flagship program. That's probably the one that's gone the farthest around the world because it's just a really good relationship education program. And it's really got so much packed into an 8 or 12 hour, depending on how they do it, class. And right now it's free. All across the state of Florida, it's free. They go to aimclasses.org, right? Adventures in Marriage, aimclasses.org, and sign up today. It's free. For the next 2.5 years, it's free. So
there's no excuses.
There's no excuse. Just go take it. And it teaches the skills because a lot of our programs, I mean, even in the Christian world, there's a lot of people that mean well and they'll have great marriage videos and, seminars and all that and, good content, but the information's not enough. You have to show people how to do it. You have to operationalize the scripture. Yes, God hates divorce. Yes, husbands love your wives. All those scriptures, that's all true. But to operationalize it, how do I do it? Because you have a lot of Christians that have the scriptures memorized and they have terrible marriages because they don't know how to do it. They just know the knowledge, but they need more than that. They need the experience. So the key about Adventures in Marriage is it gives them the skills. As you know, it's got those practical skills that you learn how to do this. You learn how to resolve that conflict without tearing each other to shreds. You learn how to communicate in a way that's honoring. You learn how to get the negative stuff, all that nasty stuff that gets, piled on top of things and then it just explodes. You learn how to take that out without it being explosive. So you learn these specific skills that are geared towards different things in relationships. And if you'll follow those things, the research is overwhelming on Adventures. Lots of research is being done and has been done on Adventures. It works. And the reason it's so much better than all the other programs out there, according to the research, is because of the skills. Most of those marriage programs, most of the marriage programs in our churches across the country don't have the skills. So they're not going to have the impact because you're not showing them how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference.
That's true. And so I'm going to run through these really quick. So we have Hope Weekend for struggling couples. We have Adventures in Marriage for people who just really want to learn those tools before they have big problems. We have Start Smart, which is a program for those who's getting ready to get married, thinking about marriage, in that serious relationship. And then we have the Real Essentials program, which is for like high school and middle school students. And we're teaching them how to have healthy relationships and communication. And so we want to thank you so much for coming on the show. So for anyone that wants to reach out to you, can you say that number one more time?
Yeah, just go to livethelife.org, like I'm living the life, livethelife.org, or just call us at 850-668-3700, and that's 850-668-3700.
And yes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually post this information onto my YouTube. So for those who's listening, just hopped in and was like, man, I really want to hear this from the beginning. Like I've heard so much about marriage. I just didn't get a chance to catch it all, you can hop right over to my YouTube, Zakia Robinson, and you can be able to view this and listen to it, take notes, and also get the information that is needed for if you are in one of these 4 categories. All right. Thank you again so much for coming out. I know this was took some of your time because you're very busy.
We love supporting you and what you're doing. We're very proud of you. We're very proud of you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, this is Zakia Robinson with Be the Light.
I'm no longer bound, I'm no longer chained, I'm no longer captive, no longer restrained, delivered, set free, and free to be me. Let me introduce myself.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Be the Light. If you are looking for a life coach, or maybe you're looking for some inner healing, please visit BeTheLight.live. Again, that is BeTheLight.live. And you can also follow us on YouTube for a replay of this show at Zakia Robinson. Be blessed.
My name is